Good?
Yep.
Free? That's better. Morning guys, John Koah Spear Guns. Taking a day here, July 14th, I guess you call it, mini season day. It's the first year they're doing this where we have a Sunday before the actual mini season, which is in about a week and a half. For us people that can't really take it Wednesday, Thursday off in the middle of the week, to give us a chance to go out and get lobster before the commercial season starts. Now, a lot of people don't know, years before I was building spear guns a long time ago, I was one of my part-time jobs was a commercial lobster diver did that for about 5-6 years. Over thousands of dives. You know, our daily average, what a commercial lobster diver will usually try to average between two guys, is somewhere around 110, 120 pounds was what you tried to pull in the boat, with most lobster averaging 1.3 to 1.5 pounds. It's been over 20 years, about 20 years since somewhere around there, 18, 20 years since I was doing that. But yeah, I retained a lot of that information. Hopefully, I get out occasionally to get them. But here in Palm Beach County, with our currents and the way our bottom's laid out here, could you free dive for them here? Sure, you could. The problem is you can't really make out the bottom to see the antenna, to see any like real numbers of lobster, because the bottom here, any lobster bottom really starts at about, decent bottom, 60-70 feet, and there is some bottom in 30 feet, 20 feet, 40 feet. It's the stuff in 40 feet that gets hammered by the charter boats in the morning. So I'm sure that's mostly seen hundreds and hundreds of divers. But the stuff that I dive, that most commercial guys dive, is really low-lying, very boring bottom. That's what's going to hold the most lobster. That's the habitat they like to be in. So I'm going to jump down here. I'm going to show you what I used to do, and hopefully pick up a couple things, and I'll show you what I've learned over the years doing it, and maybe it'll help you catch, you know, a couple more lobster during mini season, and learn how these, you know, little crustacean, these bugs, move around, how to work them out of holes better, how to get them out without damaging legs, antenna, all the above. So stay tuned. I thought I'd do some basic commentary, show you what's going on down there. Right after I get in the water, there's my broken lobster bag on the way down. Not much I can do about that. I had to get pretty creative on the bottom and make something work. This is a nice lively ledge. I try to do what I can to get away from these. Typically areas this big and lively are well known, and I just get away from them. Sometimes they hold lobster, but usually they're pretty worked over. This guy has a pretty awesome cave here. It's narrow, it goes back really far, so you want to get the snare open and behind him as quick as you can, so if he walks anywhere, it's into your snare. This guy is really odd. He's hanging out in the grass. Came across him. Found out that him was a her and had eggs, so let it go. This one's hard to tell. The current's pushing pretty good, and I can't quite get square with that first one. So I decide, don't get him excited, don't get him to jump. So I just take out the easy one. and then work the other one into a better angle so he can be taken out. Always never touching the front. Always go to the side or the back. Their field of vision's very narrow, so anytime you can get around them without them seeing or feeling the snare, that's when you're going to have your best luck. This one I had to work out. I'll explain later how I tap them out, the area you want to hit them in that makes them walk. Another egger. See ya. This one, yep, I sneak behind it without him even knowing I'm there. Their field of vision also, it's not only narrow, but it's short. So stay back as far as you can without getting them worked up. This one I had to work out a little bit. The whole trick is just don't get them too excited. Once they start jumping around like a flea, they're very hard to catch. And obviously they're also another egger. And when they go back into their holes, you really don't want to start reaching back there because you never know what you're going to get into. Unless you can see all corners of the hole. This was a double header. I grabbed that one. I have him in my hand. And this one wasn't too excited, so I'm like, all right, I'll get the second one out. This guy was buried in there pretty good. I think another egger. Yep, another egger. See you later. That's me bending the snare. I'll explain later why we always, almost after every lobster, I'm always rebending that back into a curl. This is a bigger guy. Go above him. Make sure you don't touch any of the antenna. Get him out. I think another twofer here. I got him in my hand. This guy was either I could see the eggs or it was too small, so I just kind of push him along, keep him away from the other one. And this guy was pretty excited. I think if I remember correctly, he made me had to work for it for a minute. As long as you're patient, keep working them and don't let them dig too far back into those caves. You can usually just work them out with a little bit of finesse. Let's see what we got here. So you'll probably see in the video, I haven't seen the footage yet, but right from the get-go, you'll notice that I roll in and the hotel part, or the latch part of the lobster hotel actually broke. I don't lobster dive as much as I used to, but the hotel itself broke off where you put them in. So now I just had a bag with no way to put them in there and latch the bag, or latch the lobster, keep the lobster from jumping back out. So I had to turn it into a different kind of bag, which was, this is the snap side. Usually this gets towed behind us and the hotel is on this side, and you put them in that way and it's a lot easier, it's a lot less drag. So I had to tie this in a knot, and you can actually see this is the flat part of the hotel that actually broke off. So that was rendered useless, so I had to come up with some solution really quick. And they're all average size lobster, they're decent. That's a nice guy right there. So let's see how many I ended up with. I think we're allowed 12 today. I'm just doing the one dive. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got 9. In the video you'll see that I think I threw back 5 or 6 eggers. So it's that time of year, just like in mini season, you're gonna find a lot of eggers. It's just that time. The prime lobster season is usually around November, October, November. It's usually when they drop their eggs, and usually you just have a lot better catch ratio. But it's not too bad for one dive. And like I said, I'm a little rusty, it's been a while. But we're gonna bring these in, show you how we tail them, and get on to the next part, which is cooking them. So another thing, when I was down there, I'm not sure the aspect ratio was too close or too far, but you'll notice when I'm down there, the typical thing with these, this is the most common snare in the industry, the Oceanus green lobster snare. There's other ones out there. I know Jim Matthew has one, the Lobster League one, that one's really nice as well. But for these ones with the cable, you'll notice after catching 2 or 3 lobster, they start to do this deal, and it makes them pretty useless for the type of lobstering we're doing, because it's much harder to get around a tail when this thing is curled in that direction. So it's hard to tell from my rate, from the aspect you're looking at from my mask, but you'll notice down there, if you take your 2 fingers, these 2 pointer fingers, and use your thumb and roll the pointer fingers against this while you're underwater, it's just a habit we get into when we're down there. You just keep rolling it back like this, and it's super important because you want this thing to curl inwards, and then you notice you get your curl back, and you want it to have that curl, because that's what you'll see in the underwater footage. That's what we're using to get behind the lobster without them knowing about it. The last thing you want to do is touch the front or the side of the lobster, because that pushes them backwards. You'll notice when I go into holes, I have this thing shut, and a lot of times I will go to the side of them or underneath them in the sand. And if you hit a lobster, this is a male, you can tell by the double, he only has a single set of whatever they're called down here. He doesn't have any egg carrying flaps. But you'll notice if you hit a lobster under the tail, if you hit them where the tail meets the carapace, I learned that over years, they hate that. So it makes them walk very fast, walk out of the hole. So if you can get in the sand underneath and up and hit them right there where the carapace meets the tail, they will walk right out at you. And you always have one good chance when you come up to a hole, because the lobster, like any fish, is going to be curious. They come out, they move their antenna, and you'll see in the video, they walk out a little bit, and the last thing you want to do is put this, especially here, this is how they feel everything, this and their antennas. You do not want to touch them here or here on the way in. You always want to go around, or if they're out, I know it's exciting and you just want to grab them as fast as you can, but you really want to take your time. It was screaming current down there today, so it was a lot harder than anywhere in the Keys or Bahamas or anything like that where you can stay over them for a minute, because the current was about 2.5 knots down there and it's pulling me every which direction. But if you can sit there and take your time with them, as long as you don't excite them too much, you have all the time in the world. So the whole thing is just don't touch them in the front, don't approach them at fast speeds, and they won't retreat into the hole. So I hope that tip helps you a little bit. And if I think of anything else, one more tip with these lobster. So what they have, I'm sure many of you have come across this. When you notice when you bring in the lobster, say you have a fish box full of ice, some of that ice is melted, and then you have standing fresh water. That's what kills lobster really quick. And when they die, what happens is they swell, especially in fresh water. They swell and you get this bubble around the tail. And when you go to tail them, it shoots out lobster blood or whatever that substance is, and I used to call it lobster concrete. Because once that hits your boat, within 15 minutes it turns into the hardest, most irremovable substance on the planet, no matter what you scrub at it with, and it can ruin fiberglass, it can ruin whatever it touches, ruin it. So, what I always suggest people do is take the lobster, throw them in a live well, or if you have to put them on ice, as long as that ice is draining, as long as the fresh water out of the ice is draining, it's just ice, they will not swell, it will not kill them. So, again, the last thing you want is standing fresh water with these lobster. So if you can at all possible put them in a live well or draining ice, they will come in much fresher and they won't have that swollen tail, and you will not get lobster, not as much lobster blood on your boat. So cleaning these things, removing the tail, deveining, it's not all that complicated. It's pretty straightforward. I'm sure a lot of you know how to do it. I wanted to show you one cool thing about these, and that is, a lot of people don't know this, but the lobster, what they eat with is this beak right here. This little guy, it's hard as a rock, and they tend, especially underwater, if you're not paying attention, they will take your hand and they pull everything towards their mouth. That's just their nature, is what they do. These are actually, lobster are eating machines. Anybody that's owned an aquarium and put a small lobster in there understands that. They eat everything. So I know people that have lost the tip of their finger with these lobster beaks because they are insanely powerful, they're insanely hard, and they will take the tip of your finger if they're allowed to pull it in there. So always be mindful when you're handling these guys about where your hand is and how close your finger is to getting to the front bottom of these. So the humane way to do this is you go right about to the top of the legs, probably the second one down, put that right in there, and you can dispatch them pretty quick. Put them out, so, you know, because you are ripping taking half their body off, so it's a little more humane to do it that way. Take the antenna off. I know a lot of people are going to say, how are you doing that barehanded? I did this for years, so it really doesn't bother me that much. And what I do, I take the tail, flare out the bottom, close it in on itself. That protects you from the sharp edges right here on the corner. Give it one good twist, pull the lobster meat out, take the carapace, give it to the fish. They'll eat it, stays in the food chain. And a lot of people try to use the antenna like this. You want to take about 6 inches off the antenna to where it's about 1/8 of an inch thick, 3/16 thick. It's a little more rigid. And a lot of times you'll see people go all the way up the tail. You don't have to do that. When you're deveining these things, right here's the vein, okay? If you just go up 1.5 to 2 inches tops, it breaks apart whatever appendage is holding that in place. And then you just pull out the whole thing, fully intact. And that way, whoever's eating it doesn't get a crunchy surprise, and you don't ruin the meat. So obviously that's their waste channel, and if you go in there twisting and turning, you tear apart that channel, and all that waste ends up in the meat. And when you go to cook it, if you're not careful and you don't clean it out, somebody might eat it. So that's the better way to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos like this, most of our videos are in the wood shop, doing, you know, from wood to water and doing the custom builds. If you want to see more action like this, we usually get on the water 2-3 times a month, and we do everything from deep dropping, lobster diving, to free diving, to going to the Bahamas, you name it. So like, comment, share, and by all means tell us what you'd like to see, and we're happy to put this content out there. We enjoy doing it. So next we're gonna take this apart, clean it, and do a unique cooking video that probably many of you have never seen before with lobster. So hope you enjoy it.